Just having a chat to Keith Healy about Golden Slipper Day. What a meeting it is now, rivalling Derby Day in Melbourne all round for racing, not only with the BMW and, of course, the Golden Slipper Stakes. Keith, it was one of the great Golden Slippers, as it turned out. Oh, was it ever, Bruce? The $2 million demolition derby, the little aths of racing. It was sensational yesterday, one of the most exciting that I've seen. And in the end, two top jockeys are out now, Damien Oliver and Stephen King, and a third, Shane Dye, for an unrelated incident. And they're the three riders of the three favourites in the Doncaster next week. So I'll be interested in Mac's views on that, Bruce. Well, you haven't been interested in Mac's views on much else in the past. Max, Telesto, Golden Sword and Poetic King were the three that Keith was talking about. What is the situation with the jockeys?
Well, the situation is that they're suspended. They no doubt will appeal. They no doubt will hope that they get a stay of proceedings. And the AJC, in the best interests of racing, the AJC committee must hear these appeals. They mustn't undergo a stay of proceedings. Now, Dye has mentioned, Max, that a lot of people have backed Telesto believing he would ride him in the Doncaster. That's part of his defence. Do you think it's a valid point? I think it is a valid point. Dye and Telesto are great theatre. Alas, racing isn't theatre. It's a very serious industry. Dye, many concede, would be lucky to have ridden in the Golden Slipper yesterday. The suspension came about from a charge last Saturday. Shane wasn't available to appear before the stewards before Saturday. So, look, I think he's having a pretty good run here. The AJC committee have got to hear these appeals. Let's go and have a look at the Golden Slipper in full, and then we'll have a look at the stewards' head-on shot of the last 250 metres.
The line looks near perfect, and they're off in the slipper. Rosa's Path on the outside is one of the first out. Quickly into stride, Races Edson covered is away brilliantly, and so is Lord Jim. Stonebrook Meadow showing surprising pace in the early part. Dr. Zachary, Hurricane Sky, Dan Zero not too far away when they get going. At the head of the others, Mo. Stonebrook Meadow got barrelled. He was pole-axed, Stonebrook Meadow, and he fell straight back through the field. These leaders are flying. Lord Jim's in front, more than a length to St Covered. 2.5 to Races Edge on the inside of Hurricane Sky, followed by Marwina, Dan Zero, Rosa's Path, Dr. Zachary. At the head of the others then is Zanaletti as they come down to the home turn. Mr. Vitality midfield under pressure. Moment's Pleasure out very deep, and then Charlie Bubbles. Poayak is a mile back, followed by Restive, and then Stonebrook Meadow and Taryara. Into the straight, Lord Jim, the leader, St Covered on the outsiders, going after him. 2 lengths away, Races Edge, followed by Hurricane Sky, and Dan Zero pulled right out to the middle of the track, is starting to warm up now at the 200. Lord Jim headed by St Covered, but here comes Dan Zero. Dan Zero down the outside is about to swamp these leaders. Dan Zero coming at St Covered. St Covered is kicking again. It's St Covered and Dan Zero. They hit the line, heads up, heads down. I reckon Dan Zero a breath to St Covered in a head bobber. Now third, probably Races Edge in front.
In many ways, racing at its very best, and Greg Hall at his very best. They're changing style 3 or 4 times in the last 50 metres because of circumstances. It was difficult from the side on, Keith, to really get a picture of the interference in that race.
Bruce, I've never known a finish where the side-on gave a more distorted view of the finish. At Flemington, where I was yesterday, viewers thought that Greg Hall was the culprit in that squeezing, and it turned out to be otherwise, but I agree with you, that was maybe his finest ride. That was desperation at his best, and no points away from Shane Dye. He took his mounts and covered out a little, knowing that they were going to be swamping him. Good tactics, and he almost brought that off.
Max, you're feeling it. You've looked at the head-on. The stewards have given it to us today. Would you like to talk about it as we watch all this interference in the straight?
Yes, I'd just like to preface that by saying the Golden Slipper was a bloody disgrace. It was riddled with interference. It's a slur on racing. They've got to clean it up. Somebody's going to get hurt.
How do they clean it up? As John Trek said during the week, I'm not going to bother to tell the jockeys that about interference. I'd be wasting my time. Didn't he say to them, go out and put it on a good show?
Well, that they did, but it was a show more befitting, let's say, out of Mongolia. The interference early.
Though, Max. I mean, their racing probably is quite clean. But tell us about this anyway.
Well, here we are. You can see Greg Hall on the outside and Shane Dye. Now, Shane Dye and Hall are involved in a bumping duel. Hurricane Sky. Oh, have a look at this. Shane Dye nearly came off after the winning post. Certainly, had Hall not won the Golden Slipper yesterday, he would have protested and got it that way. I agree with Keith on the fact that it was one of his finest rides. He was cramped. Shane gave his all. It was a pair of brilliant rides, but we're getting to the stage with the Golden Slipper. Is it getting a shade over competitive? What do you do?
Well, maybe reduce the field to 12. Look, Keith's getting on in age. He likes to look at things a couple of times now.
Thanks a lot.
We'll replay that
Max,
for you.
they're probably going to regurgitate now the cry to reduce the field. That comes up after every roughhouse golden slipper. Then we have a soft one, then we have a rough one again.
Well, look at this in the straight. Do you think, I guess numbers aren't the key here. Look at the bumping going on.
No, I don't think numbers are the key. I think that jockeys... and there we go. Di, lucky to stay in the saddle after the finish, but I did think he contributed more than Hall getting out in the straight. The thing is that should be considered is the overseas rule. If you knock a horse down, you go behind that horse. Now, there were three horses severely interfered with: Poyak, Stonebrook Meadow and Tayara. This was early in the race. That latter stage, that was just a little bit of icing for the cake. But they were knocked out of the race. Now, I do think Dan Zero was the best horse in the Golden Slipper, and he won. Had he have drawn barrier 1 or 2, I don't think he could have won.
Max, punters around Australia were waiting for the outcome of the multiple protests, but in the steward's room at Rose Hill, they were really a nonsense.
Oh, exactly. Perhaps even worthy of a fine for frivolous protest. Stephen King maintained that the first 2 caused him interference, which was the case. But he said, I would have run third.
Gee,
that's not good enough.
No, that's some immaturity, isn't it, in that situation? Let's have a look at and see what Tim Wharton got out of Lee Friedman after the race.
Well, Lee, 2 in a row. How's the feeling?
Yeah, it's great. You know, it's a great race to win. It's like the Melbourne Cup. You love winning these big races.
You were very confident with Dan Zero, weren't you?
I was. He was the lightest racehorse and all that, but he went into the race. I thought the perfect preparation, and the horse peaked. I felt he peaked this week, and that was his race.
Were you happy that everybody was talking about St Covered and Hurricane Sky and Mr. Vitality?
It's nice to go in as the it's nice to go in as the underdog a bit, I think. But in the end, I think the punters supported him with their money. So. Yeah.
What a great trainer he is, not running in the Blue Diamond, thinking he would have taken something out of the horse, and coincidentally having 4 starts now after the Golden Slipper, just like Bint Maskey last year with the same record. Here's Greg Hall, the winning jockey, with Tim.
Well, Greg, a few anxious moments after the Slipper for you.
Yeah, well, I wasn't concerned about that because, either protest actually, because St Covered had basically done all the damage. You know, if I had got beat, I would have protested myself and been very confident in getting it, actually.
First Slipper, does it hit you yet?
Yeah, it's great to, you know, I've been around a while and won great races, and this is another one, which is really good to get it out of the way, these big races, but I'll be back here next year trying to win next year's as well, and it's a great feeling. I haven't had a lot of luck in them. I've had about 7 rides for 5 suspensions, so today made up for it, though.
It sure did. What a turnaround in Greg Hall's career over the last couple of years. Let's go to the BMW. Miltac winning. The mare that's named after 2 New Zealand parish churches and who has a syndicate manager called Colin Devine, believe it or not. And she can really run, can't she, Max?
Yes, she can really stay. That's the key to Miltac. I just wonder about Durbridge over the 1.5 miles.
Non-stayer, Max, I reckon.
No, I would say that you're right there, but there is just something about this Miltac. Certainly a lot of quality towards the end of her races, and she's going to be very, very hard to beat in the Sydney Cup. Any other staying race that she's in too.
She looks over the line in the Cup. She should run about 6 to 4 if it's a dry track now.
Yeah, I don't know whether she'll... I think you'll do a little bit better than that, Bruce. 6 to 4. She'll have a bit of opposition, but nevertheless, she's the one to beat.
The 16th Group 1 win for trainer Dave O'Sullivan. He loves this day at Rose Hill, doesn't he?
Yes, I think a lot of people love the day. I don't think Lee Friedman would be knocking it.
But I was going to say, Colin David Hayes might be after yesterday. 2, 3 and 4 in the Golden Slipper, and Dark's second in that race.
Yes, I think the prize money was very, very trifling. He was unhappy and picked up about 700,000, 70,000.
Max, tell us about Arborea and the Group 1 answer. This was one of the shock failures of the day. Capchat looks like she can't stay unless there's an excuse we don't know about. Now Cove, who had run second in the Wakeful Stakes, she's outside the lead at the moment, but had only run 1 lowly race at Flemington in May last year, took it out.
This was not the real Arborea. Early in the race, she threw her head around. She refused to settle. She does have mouth problems. She just did not fire yesterday. She's a much better horse than that. Clary Connors will tamper with a gear, perhaps put a cross-nose band on, rings, but will try and get the old Arborea back. That's not Arborea. Now, she got into a bit of buffeting in the straight, but she just didn't fire yesterday. Looked good, looked much better than she did at a previous start.
Constant flight?
Constant flight, getting back to top form, but certainly has had setbacks, but if she clicks, she's still going to be a force in the Oaks.
I think the best filly will be missing Max Tristelove. I think she's the best now.
Yes, I would say so, certainly, and she will definitely be missing, Keith. from the Oaks in
Is she
Sydney.
out, Keith?
Well, she's not going to Sydney. She's going to the Australasian Oaks.
I think they'll go to Sydney. I reckon they might change.
You want a
their
shilling on the side?
Yeah.
He's a very tough man, McNulty, the manager, and he won't go to Sydney.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that news
and if
to you,
Keith
Max?
Hillier wants to have a shilling on, I want to be 5 cents with him.
Oh, good on you, Maxie. Now, Maxie, tell us about the horse that was named after you, Mahogany Max.
Yeah, well, Mahogany didn't prove anything else yesterday other than what we know, that he's a very good 3-year-old. It was run at a muddling pace, the Tulloch Stakes. He was up there, always going well. I was disappointed in Sable Dreamer. Didn't really fire as I thought he would, but certainly the race was run to suit Mahogany. He's top class. He's going to be very hard to beat in the Derby, particularly if they run it at a dawdling pace. I've always had my doubts about him as a stayer. His quality, never. And this is Mahogany quality.
Could I ask you a hypothetical question? Do you think could win the Doncaster as a 3-year-old? I'm thinking about Poetic King. Could he win the Doncaster, Mahogany?
Yes, he could win anything.
Because that's he's a miler, don't you think? A mile and a quarter horse?
Well, yeah, that would be my preferred distance, but of course there is a little weight deficit in the Doncaster to take into consideration.
It sure is, and Keith, in the last Poetic King, he's now won 7 out of 8. He's gone up 2 notches, I reckon, in one race. I know he won the Moomba Plate like a good horse. He won this like a superstar.
He's a very good horse. This is part of the Flemington Travelling Roadshow. 5 winners at Rose Hill yesterday. Flemington trained, and this, one of the most impressive, and I think he might be back in the winner's stall next Saturday in the Doncaster. He's lightly weighted. Have a look at the ease of this win. That's a pretty smart horse chasing him too, never undercharged.
Now, you're a big man for sectionals, Max. The sectionals here were pretty impressive.
Brilliant, but we must take into consideration he had a trot and canter to the turn. It was a sit and sprint home. This is a very good racehorse, but certainly he won't be doing it as easy in the Doncaster. He's going to be a worthy contender, but just a little bit of difference there when you get the Telestos and the Golden Swords. I don't underrate Never Undercharge, but in a different tempo, I think Never Undercharge will be very competitive. But there's no doubt about it, that last winner has got plenty of potential.
Max, look forward to talking to you next week. One of the great days, isn't it, Keith?
Sure, and I don't know whether Max as a 4-name could run the last 633.9 as Poetic King did. Then he'll win the Doncaster Prix.
With a trot and canter in front, I reckon a lot of horses can.
Max, if you keep talking, someone's going to pull the chair from under you in Sydney. See you next week. Catch you too, Keith. Motorsport after this.